Witches live among us in secret. Their magic passed down from an ancient race, diluted, half forgotten, but dangerously powerful. After centuries of conflict, a truce was forged. Witches would be allowed to live and govern themselves if they followed one strict rule: that magic never be used against humans. But a truce is a fragile thing. There are some who long for the return of the old ways.
I don't know. I sit somewhere between being a literal witch, I'm not kidding.
You are a witch?
I am indeed the witchiest witch.
Tonight, guests will ascend the museum's famed steps wearing outfits that nod to the event's The Garden of Time dress code, and you can see all the Met Gala 2024 looks right here as the night unfolds. The night's tutorial theme gets its name from a J.G. Ballard story about a count who, to stave off an angry mob nearing his castle, cuts a rose from his garden to slow down time until there are no flowers remaining. The Garden of Time dress code, inspired by a short story from 1962 of the same title by J.G. Ballard, could have perhaps been interpreted in a variety of different ways. As expected, however, a whole multitude of archival magic was unearthed, and florals for spring actually proved to be somewhat groundbreaking. April 20th to May 20 is the zodiac sign Taurus the Bull. The ruling planet is Venus, element Earth. At the Met Gala, Venus Williams wore a mirror dress. Venus's symbol is a mirror. The birthstone for May is emerald. The 2024 Met Gala was held on Monday, May 6 at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The theme was Sleeping Beauty's reawakening fashion, with a dress code of the Garden of Time. Allegedly, the theme is Garden of Time, but that phrase doesn't make sense to me. And you should know these people are liars, and whatever they do, there's an esoteric meaning behind it. They were raving about Zendaya's dress. At first I thought she was a mermaid due to the colors, but then I noticed the grapes, and that revealed what they're really doing. Dionysus is the god of the grape harvest, winemaking and wine, of fertility, ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and theatre in ancient Greek religion and myth. Dionysus, god of wine, celebrations, and ecstasy, symbols are the grapevine, ivy cup, tiger, panther, and goat. The Eleusinian mysteries were initiations held every year for the cult of Demeter and Persephone. Based on the Pan-Hellenic sanctuary of Eleusis in ancient Greece, they were considered the most famous of the secret religious rites of ancient Greece. The mysteries represented the myth of the abduction of Persephone from her mother Demeter by the king of the underworld Hades. The rites, ceremonies, and beliefs were kept secret and consistently preserved from antiquity. Since the mysteries involved visions and conjuring of an afterlife, some scholars believe that the power and longevity of the Eleusinian mysteries, a consistent set of rites, ceremonies, and experiences that span 2 millennia, came from psychedelic drugs. As soon as I saw this costume, I thought of Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Both have a yellow dress and roses. That person's dress is like a bell jar, and the enchanted rose was trapped in a jar. I think it connects to Rosicrucianism as well. In the center of the cross is a yellow cross with a red rose. As per usual, he's doing the gesture of Inanna Ishtar's prostitutes. His V-shaped necklace mirrors the Venus statue, Goddess Maya, and Greek May Day traditions. The month of May, a month celebrating spring, and the summer ahead, a month of rebirth, nature, and flowers. May takes its name from Maya in Greek mythology, the oldest of 7 nymphs of the Pleiades, daughters of Atlas, the Titan god, deemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, and mother of Hermes, messenger of the gods. Maya, Electra, Taigete, Alcyone, Kyleno, Sterope, and Merope, the Pleiades, celestial nymphs. Born on Mount Collini in Arcadia, where she lived alone in a cave, Maya was an earth goddess, a nurturer, a mother, a nurse, and grandmother of magic. The reunion of Demeter, goddess of harvest, with her daughter Persephone. Along with the goddess Maya, according to Greek mythology, the month of May was also a celebration of the reunion of Demeter, goddess of harvest, fertility, and agriculture, with her virgin daughter Persephone. Persephone returned to Earth after being kidnapped and held prisoner by Hades, god of the underworld. Persephone, often known simply as Kore, was a daughter of Zeus and Demeter. Her mythology tells of how she was abducted by her uncle Hades one day while picking flowers. When Demeter at last located Persephone in the underworld, she demanded that her daughter be returned, but Hades had tricked Persephone into eating something, a handful of pomegranate seeds, while she was in the underworld. Thus, although Persephone was allowed to spend part of the year on Olympus with her mother, she was forced to spend the other part of the year in the underworld as Hades' bride. As the wife of Hades, Persephone was the queen of the underworld. She was also associated with spring, girlhood, and marriage. Persephone was often worshipped alongside her mother Demeter, for example, in the Eleusinian mysteries. May, the last month of spring, was the victor of summer against winter and of life against death. Spring and the month of May has been celebrated in Greece since ancient times. One of the oldest celebrations was the Anathasteria, an ancient Greek flower festival, one of the 4 Athenian festivals in honor of Dionysus. May wreaths, symbolizing fertility and fruitfulness, prosperity and happiness, are made with wildflowers and are taken home to hang on doors. The Vlachs, traditionally living in northern and central Greece, believe that on the 1st of May, all magic spells come true, and the only way to prevent being cursed by a spell is to carry with you the head of a viper. This custom is doubly effective if the viper has been killed on the 1st of May. In northern Greece, May is associated with magic and spells, so no weddings take place in May to avoid any bad luck and misfortune befalling the happy couple. In Roman times, as May was connected with death, locals of northern Greek villages visit cemeteries. In ancient Greek, a flower festival dedicated to Dionysus, the god of pleasure, was held in early spring in the month of Anathasteria, the 8th month of the ancient Athenian Attic calendar, which falls from mid-February to mid-March. Maybe our modern May Day celebrations are a throwback to the ancient Anthasterion. Anthosi, flower nymphs, are minor goddesses and spirits of nature that appear as beautiful, youthful women with hair resembling blossoms of a hyacinth flower. Anthosi are perhaps the most fragile nymphs with Dryads, their life depending on that of the flower that they are connected to, and so dying when their flower dies and vice versa. Like most nymphs, Anthosi work alongside more powerful gods, especially in taking care of and maintaining nature, with their specialty being in flowers. That's why the Garden of Time theme is rubbish. Kim car crash. You could throw a bucket of gold paint on him and he would still look like a 10-pound tart. The person with the daffodil on his head reminded me of the daffodil fairy. This weird ensemble actually looks like the May fairy. The green bodice matches the fairy, the cream-colored petals. Uma has these blue butterflies on his shoulders. I think it resembles the cornflower fairy, who has blue butterfly wings and a blue outfit. Carrie's purple flower gown could be a heliotrope fairy with a purple dress and purple flowers. I don't know what Tiana is wearing. Maybe it's meant to be classy, but I feel like he's going to do a rendition of Lady Marmalade. I guess they didn't understand the assignment. FKA Twigs used a mop for inspiration, so I guess they'll wipe the floor with her. The silver bars on the bodice reminded me of Priyanka's top. The message, we're in a glittery prison. There's a reason Cardi B looks like that, and we'll discuss that later. This person is called Lizzo, or maybe Lizard. What is this? I think he resembles the CERN Super Collider Stargate portal. To me, his dress looks like the Rose Fairy. Drag Queen Latifah, the yellow flowers on his dress looks like the Toadflax Fairy. They're not all 100% identical, and I don't have time to break down every single person attending because I know someone's going to be in the comments and said, "You forgot about this one." The evidence here is that it's not a garden party. They connect to flower fairies because this is a Dionysian ritual. I think Kelsey looks like the Shirley puppy. There were a few people at the gala wearing puppies, and I'll get into the reason for that later. That's a bloke. The skull is too big, the jaw is really wide. He has flowers painted on his body. It really annoys me how they freely lie about this, yet they parade it in front of your face. Carol G with pointy prosthetic ears. The gala was based on a short story that had nothing to do with elves. Storm Reed wore a plain dress with an apple accessory. The Meliads were nymphs of apple and other fruit trees and the protectors of sheep. The Greek word melos, from which their name derives, means both apple and sheep. And since they're referencing fairies, it connects to the fairy tale Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The witch is making a poison apple. Cyanide is a poison made from apple seeds. So the poison was really supposed to kill Snow White, not make her sleep. It's just a reminder that these celebrities are spiritual poison. The 12 zodiac signs as Disney villains. The best part of Disney movies are the villains. They are overflowing with personality, and some of them run parallel with the darker side of the zodiac. Taurus, the queen, Snow White. Of course this queen is a Taurus. Her sole motivation is to be the fairest of them all. The zodiac's bulls are ruled by Venus, the planet to beauty and jealousy, so they demand superlatives for being gorgeous. Is that asking for the moon and the stars? This queen didn't think so until someone younger and suppler came along to threaten her vanity. And naturally, because Taurus rules over the throat, it's fitting that her means of attack is a poison apple. Even while donning a less attractive visage in the name of revenge, Snow White's queen is a Taurus to her core. Unseelie fairy gown. I designed this unseelie fairy gown for a client wanting a high-fashion fairy-themed gown. The unseelie fae in mythology are evil or wicked fairies, and there were a couple of people wearing black, so I think they represent the dark fairies that like to hurt people for fun. I noticed his shoes were specifically made to look like deer hooves. Taurus is ruled by Venus and her symbol is the rose. Usher's rose is dripping, so it could probably represent radiation. Black and pink is the worst color combination. On the back of his head is a dragonfly, so it could mean he's attracted to young people. Remember, these witches use glamour. They look good on the outside, but inside they're malevolent. Chloe is no longer passing. That's a man in drag. If you can't see that, I can't help you. Now that's a man wrapped up like a Christmas ham. His bodice looks like wood because he's a tree nymph. A tree nymph is called Dryad or Hamadryad. The Greek word dris meant oak, and the term dryad initially only applied to those nymphs who were spirits of oak trees. In time, however, the word came to be broadly applied to all tree nymphs. There were other plant nymphs as well. The Anthusi, for example, were flower nymphs, and the Ampeloi were nymphs of grapevines. The Dryads far outnumbered the other plant nymphs, however, and are among the most famous nature spirits in ancient mythology. The Dryads were unique in that one could become a Dryad without having been born a nymph at all. There are two types of stories in which women were magically transformed into trees. They were either trying to escape the lustful advances of a man or god, or they were so overcome by emotion that the gods took pity on them and made them trees to spare them further anguish. Lana has branches on his head and dress because he's a Dryad. All of this is connecting to the Dionysian rites. Just to rub it in your face, his shoes are deer hooves. Emma is a Dryad as well. Her dress is dark brown like tree bark. They call this look goth, but goth is black, not brown. This is a pagan celebration going back centuries. The Dionysus story is perhaps the most powerful, which links mankind to the grapevines. It not only gives an insight into the customs and beliefs of an ancient civilization, but also tells us something about the unchanging nature of the human condition. The scenes of divine possession, madness, sacrifice, death, and orgiastic rites echo the mayhem and breakdown of civil order when war or other events rips a country apart. The rite of Dionysus gives shape and form to the powerful forces beneath the everyday life of civilized reality and the forces that reflect our essence and what we are capable of. The temptation, vines, twist like serpents, wines that intoxicate and promise love where love is not. Because you're not going to get love from these people, you're only going to get lust. Ariana Grande was the focal point of this thing. He's got these weird things glued to his face. The editing on his neck and shoulders is ridiculous. In Greek mythology, the name Chloris means greenish-yellow, pale green, and she was a nymph or goddess connected to spring, flowers, and new growth. His skirt is greenish-yellow. The shoes resemble goat hooves. Ariana Grande's Met Gala performance look is full-on woodland fairy. If God is a woman, then Ariana Grande is going all in on dreamy goddess gowns. Grande kicked off the surprise performance. No, it wasn't a surprise performance. Greek music and dance. Whenever people came together in ancient Greece, there was likely to be some form of musical accompaniment. There were joyful songs to celebrate marriage and childbirth, sad lamentation after death, work songs for harvesting, grinding grain and weaving, drinking songs, love songs, even songs for curing illness. In addition to folk songs of this kind, there were more formal competitive performances. Religious festivals often provided an occasion for composers and performers to pitch their skills against each other. Grande kicked off the surprise performance solo while wearing a sheer fairy tale dress. The Grammy winner styled her watercolor gown with hoof-shaped pumps and nymph-like hair and makeup. Prior to singing her tunes in front of the Temple of Dender, with not one but two goddess gowns for Met Gala Monday, we understand why Grande once crooned that God is a woman. His surprise performance, where the dancers are nymphs, looks similar to the Pleiades nymphs dancing. Fuchsia is a dancer, dancing on her toes, clad in red and purple, by a cottage wall, sometimes in a greenhouse in frilly white and rose, dressed in her best for the fairies' evening ball. The girl is wearing red and purple and dancing on her toes. They reference Greek mythology, and the Garden of Time isn't about that. The men's clothing is Grecian, Ariana is dressed like a nymph. I came across Dionysus today, known as Bacchus by the Romans, so I took a few photos of him and his goings-on. As a Greek god, Dionysus is a creature of mystery and a personification of nature. In my pictures, he is shown as a bull, but is also sometimes seen as a lion, a serpent, or a virile youth. The Maenads who worshipped Dionysus danced and writhed through the vines to the sound of trumpets and the beat of drums. The rabbits' heads in the photo above show that this was also a sacrificial rite. In the photo below, he's surrounded by the Bacchanal, a group of women who roam the mountains in a trance. At the height of ecstasy, they would seize an animal, tear it apart, and eat it raw. They did this to commune with the god's flesh and blood. The cult of Dionysus is also a cult of the souls. His Maenads feed the dead through blood offerings, and he acts as a divine communicant between the living and the dead. He is sometimes categorized as the dying and rising god. These people are surrounded by transgenders. If you can't see that's a man with big shoulders, small hips, and a male brow ridge, you're in trouble. The rites and the mysteries of Dionysus. The Greek drama can be apprehended as an extended ritual originating in the ceremonies of the Dionysus cult. In particular, tragedy derived its origin from the sacrifice of goats and the hymns which were sung on that occasion. Tragedia means song of the male goat. In this respect, Dionysus characterized the essence of the drama by crossing and transgressing the border between the divine and the human world. When the gods interacted with men in the Homeric epics, they did so for their own selfish reasons, but in the classical drama, they reflect and judge the activity of men. Dionysus was the god of intoxication and ecstasy, and his followers were called Maenads, from the Greek word mania, madness. He was able to inspire his subjects with what was called enthusiasm, a word that still survives in a much milder sense. The change of mental condition was represented in the persona, the mask, which denoted the crossing of the border between reality and fantasy. The plot of the Bacchae of Euripides exemplifies Dionysus's revelations, in which he acts as both protagonist and director. Dionysus helps him to behold, to have visions of 2 suns, 2 towns of Thebes, and so on. Pentheus leaves the world of men and crosses the border to the other side in his efforts to witness the rites of the Bacchantes. To behold the holy objects was thus the central rite in the mysteries of Dionysus, which parallels the rites of the Eleusinian mysteries, where the participants were called epoptai, beholders. Euripides mentions other rites in his tragedy. The Bacchantes dance in the mountains in ecstasy, and most striking of all, their attacks on wild animals and even on males in the vicinity. Most of the descriptions of the bloodthirsty Bacchantes who act like beasts of prey originate from the Bacchae. Tragedy still represents Dionysus as the transgressor of borders. He appears as both man and woman, and he makes the manly Pentheus appear as a woman. Distances do not exist any longer, and there are no distinction between sexes. The god is far away and near, both mad and the wisest of the wise. At the same time, Dionysus cooperated with the goddess of agriculture, Demeter. The mysteries had originally been a cult for females only, and up to that point, everything followed a chaste and honorable ritual. A chosen priestess, Pacula Ania by name, had changed the rites and initiated her own son and later other men. She had also changed the rites from being performed in daylight into nocturnal sessions. This was the beginning of decay according to Livy to a point, where every human crime was permitted and where Roman matrons performed obscene rites with their hair undone. The initiation of young men had been changed into sexual debauchery such as rape by the Bacchic priests and so on. There are, however, some objections to Livy's account. His stories of mysterious abductions and horrible torture, as well as other forms of exploitation, seem to be exaggerated, if not pure inventions. The suggestion of homosexual contacts is not known from any form of Dionysian mystery, as far as we knew. However, a senatorial decree on a bronze tablet strictly regulated the cult and banned rites performed in secret or outside the city. Becoming a Bacchus, there was some grain of truth in Livy's account, such as the information about preparation before initiation. The initiate had to abstain from certain foods and from sexual intercourse for 10 days. A purifying bath preceded the sacrificial-like ceremony of a pig or cockerel. After that, the initiate swore a solemn oath never to betray the meaning of the mysteries and to serve Dionysus forever. The centaurs were other symbols of immortality and were mythological beings that carried the spirits of the dead to heaven. Grapes were also represented together with wine, symbolizing the crossing of the border of this world to the next. This symbol survived in the Christian church as denoting eternal life. Wellhead, Roman 1st century. This lavish marble wellhead is decorated with 4 scenes of aroused males pursuing women and a youth. One scene shows the hero Heracles dressed in women's clothes and grappling with the Lydian queen Omphale, who is wearing his lion skin cloak. Other scenes from this mythological world show the highly sexed followers of the god Dionysus. In the final scene, a seated bearded man grabs the arm of a youth. Scholars originally interpreted the youth as a hermaphrodite, but this figure is actually male. Goddesses of the water. Because the Greeks believed all the waters of the world were connected, there was sometimes overlap between the different types of water nymphs. The wife of Poseidon, for example, was a nymph named Amphitrite. She was usually described as a Nereid, but sometimes called an Oceanid. Naiads were often described as the daughters of the river gods, making them the younger nieces of the Oceanids. The Naiads were unique in that they were often found living much closer to humans than the rest of their kin. The wells and springs that provided water to towns and even great cities had their own nymphs who lived side by side with the human population. The differences between the Oceanids and Naiads were subtle, and the two types were often indistinguishable unless one knew the identity of their father. The murky swamps and bogs were home to much older, more sinister forces. Humans and nymphs alike were warned to avoid places where the water was not clear and pure. Jenny Greenteeth is a nymph that kidnaps children and drowns them. Peg Powler is a similar aquatic hag in English folklore. I guess that's what Rita is supposed to be, because I don't understand why he's wearing that. Do you see that Elle's dress appears to be water? Because he's a naiad. The scales on the dress are like a mermaid. The blue is for the color of the ocean. Yamaya is a mermaid goddess in Santeria and voodoo religion. Sometimes she's called Mami Water, and the blue fabric around his arms reminded me of the waves in the right picture. This is another reference to a water nymph. There's a reason Doja appears to have come out of the bath. Gabrielle Union is obviously a mermaid, but this is a reference to voodoo. The mermaid La Sirène. This mermaid demoness is also said to be a powerful water spirit popular in the Caribbean island of Haiti. In Haiti, voodoo is one of the most popular religions there. Water spirits are said to be manifesting to the voodoo people there as they seek the help of these spirits from under the water. Followers of La Sirène say she takes them below the water to her world for 3 days, 3 weeks, months, or even years, and when they return to land, they would return with new powers. It is said that some women become voodoo priestesses this way. Janelle Monáe is a Nereid or Oceanid. The water accents with the sequins is like a mermaid. A few of these people wore clothing that was mermaid themed. Vera Wang's dress is called Fishtail, so they know what they're doing. Yet another dress with scales, so it represents him being a mermaid. His bodysuit is ocean colors, but he reminded me of Mystique from X-Men. Mystique is a shapeshifter, so what does that tell you? The Pleiades were either Oreads or, like their mother, a type of water nymph. They are sometimes called Atalantis after their father the Titan Atlas. The Seven Sisters, as they are popularly referred to, are recurring characters in Greek mythology. Along with other nymphs, they served as the nurses to the infant Dionysus after the death of his mother. The sisters were pursued once by the giant Orion, who sought to take advantage of the fact that their father was holding up the dome of the sky and could not protect them. When the sisters threw themselves from a cliff to avoid being captured, Zeus turned them into birds to save their lives. In honor of their services to the gods and to appease their father, he further transformed them into stars to be held above Atlas's head. The Pleiades were an important star cluster for marking the seasons in the Greek world. And now we come to this bathing in water symbology. People complain that Doja Cat wore nothing but a wet t-shirt. It's not a t-shirt. When you get baptized, you wear a white robe. Do you see the neckline and the bell sleeves? That's what he's wearing. The silver makeup is like water running down his face. It means he was baptized before he went to the party. I know these people aren't Christian, and holding the breast is telling you that. Baptism in the mystery cults. Baptisms or lustral purifications, according to carefully prescribed forms, were required. In certain mysteries, example of Isis and Mithra, it is by baptism per lavacrum that members are initiated. In the Apollinarian and Eleusinian rites, they are baptized, and they imagine that the result of this baptism is regeneration and the remission of the penalties of their sins. At Eleusis, the Mysti cleansed themselves in the sea. Apuleius, after prayer for pardon, underwent a bath of purification. After the vision of the deity, a baptism of sprinkling. After 10 days, Castamonia, the Dionysiac candidate, was thoroughly cleansed before initiation. And then my friend said to me, "Oh, did you know Russell Brand got baptized?" No, I didn't know that. Russell Brand hugs Bear Grylls in the River Thames after being baptized. That's disgusting! The River Thames is like a petri dish. I wouldn't put a toe in that. Brand's conversion to Christianity came months after he faced allegations of sexual assault, which the comedian strenuously denies. Russell is not Christian. She was initiated into the next level of her cult. Baptism is a symbol of initiation or death and rebirth, especially of a spiritual nature. Baptism by water represents an immersion in the unconscious and emotions. This is a cleansing and dissolving process. In myth, baptism by water is the creation of a new personality on a higher plane. In alchemy, it is dissolution. Baptism by fire represents a purging or burning away of what is no longer needed. Psychologically, baptisms by either fire or blood refer to the ordeal of enduring intense effects that taxes the ego. Successfully enduring this ordeal results in a refinement. That's alchemy. Red represents fire. His clothing is singed because they show he went through the fire. Dionysian mysteries initiation. Cross-dressing, mystic knowing, ritual dying, rebirth. The solar eclipse was April 8th. The Met Gala was May 6th. 8, 6. Urban Dictionary 86th. To get rid of, originally for killing someone. The phrase 80 miles out and 6 feet under was reserved for someone who had to dig their own grave 80 miles from civilization and then get shot execution style.
So I just found this on TikTok. What do you think about this? This was the last eclipse, August 2021, 2017. This is when they rolled out the vaccines, and this was the most recent eclipse. How is it a coincidence that it's exactly in the middle? And I double checked this because I was like, well, I want to double check. This seems way too coincidental. So let's do the math. August 20th, 2017 to December 14th, 12 days. And then I put up here December 14th, 2020 to April 8th, 2024. 12, almost 12 days, almost the exact same. Very interesting. And I even double checked this. When did they come out? December 14th, 2020. How, guys, how is this possible? Tell me, please.
Cara Delevingne wore this to a flower-themed party. A male coif is a type of armor which covered the head. They were popular with European fighting men of the Middle Ages. The recent eclipse was the 8th of April. That's the sign of Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. and Mars is the god of war. That's why. That's something you wear for battle. They're preparing for war. That's what they're indicating here. Taurus, a north constellation between Aries and Orion containing the Hyades and the Pleiades, the second sign of the zodiac, bull, because the bull is a sacrificial offering. Queen, female ruler, leader, head, goddess, Regina, bee, lady, May, birthstone, emerald. Named after the Greek goddess Maia, Maia is identified with the Roman goddess of fertility Bernadea, whose festival took place in May. However, the poet Ovid believed that May was named after Maioris, Latin for elders, meaning that May was the month of the elders, while June was the month of juniors, the young. May is queen, June is rose, July is seaside. Taurus the bull, one of the zodiacal constellations included in Ptolemy's list. According to legend, Jupiter, the king of the gods, fell in love with Europa, daughter of King Agenor of Crete, and decided to abduct her. He therefore assumed the form of a white bull and induced Europa to ride on his back, whereupon Jupiter dashed into the sea and swam away with her. Taurus is easy to find. Its chief star, Aldebaran, is lined up with Orion's belt. The constellation abounds in spectacular objects, the most famous being the star cluster known as the Pleiades, or Seven Sisters, surrounding the third magnitude star Alcyon. Astrology and Geminology, emeralds as birthstones and beyond. In the realm of astrology and geminology, emeralds hold special significance as the birthstone for those born in May. Beyond their association with the specific month, emeralds are also linked to the astrological sign of Taurus. Emeralds have long been associated with healing properties and metaphysical benefits. Emeralds as symbols of power and prestige. Throughout history, emeralds have held a special place as symbols of power, prestige, and divine favor. Ancient civilizations, such as the Egyptians and the Inca, revered emeralds for their rich color, associating them with fertility, rebirth, and protection. In medieval Europe, emeralds were believed to have mystical properties, providing protection against evil and enhancing the wearer's intuition. The allure of emeralds persisted through the ages, and they became sought-after treasures for monarchs and aristocrats, symbolizing wealth, wisdom, and the divine. Tau, the 19th letter of the Greek alphabet Tau, is written as T. The Tau symbol letter is used to represent the time constant, density, and sometimes the golden ratio, as well as some other things in different areas. In physics and engineering, the time constant, usually denoted by the Greek letter Tau, is the parameter characterizing the response to a step input of a first-order linear time invariant. The time constant is also used to characterize the frequency response of various signal processing systems, magnetic tapes, radio transmitters and receivers, record cutting and replay equipment, and digital filters. Electromechanical timers can be set up or programmed to perform one or more functions. They differ in terms of accuracy and repeatability and have both minimum and maximum time intervals. Electromechanical timers may accept a voltage, current, frequency, or pulse as an input and can send serial, digital, or switch outputs, which means that it can be done remotely. Typically, electromechanical timers are used in factories and other industrial settings. Time delays in electronic circuits. Whenever capacitance and resistance occur in electronic or electrical current, the combination of these two quantities results in time delays in the transmission of signals. Sometimes this is the desired effect, other times it may be an unwanted side effect. Capacitance may be due to an electronic component, a real physical capacitor, a stray capacitance caused by conductors in proximity, tracks on a circuit board, or cords in a cable. What are capacitors used for? Capacitors are used in electrical and electronic circuitry for a variety of reasons: setting the frequency of oscillators, bypassing transient currents on power supply lines, starting of induction motors, electromagnetic interference, suppressors in electronic devices, and electrical appliances. At the gala, 2 people were wearing silver and gold. That connects to the never-ending story: pink, yellow, blue, and white. Atreyu was given the Aran, but we know that as the Ouroboros, the snake biting his tail. The never-ending story is the perpetual time loop that has trapped us for centuries. The Atua is a device of incredible power used by the progenitors. Conspiracy lore in real life indicates that Atua is used to restart time flows. Atua, the Anunnaki time restarting device. I did a video about this on my first channel, but we'll revisit this briefly. The battle over Jerusalem is an alien diversion. It is now time to reveal this information. For a long time, the earth has been regarded as insignificant in the scheme of things. Many see it as a place for schooling for the soul, which is another alien deception. The Vulturites and the Reptilians were once like family, but the family began bickering and they broke off to form their own empires a long time ago. These are the two most formidable Anunnaki races in the cosmos, and both are vying for supremacy over the other. Before this schism occurred, the reptilian Anunnaki elite would restart time whenever things got too far out of control. The place where this took place was on their home planet Nibiru, which orbited a star called Zaus. The Anunnaki elite realized their planet and star were in a precarious situation long before they were destroyed. Therefore, they relocated the time restarting device called Atua to a very remote planet that had virtually no technology. That remote planet was Earth. Before the Anunnaki elite selected Earth for the Atua, the planet was an unimportant disposable celestial body that was used as a dumping ground for alien convicts, space garbage, and other trash. Many Jews today claim to have rights to Palestine because they believe that their God Jehovah has given them the land. The right to this land is contested by many Palestinians who believe that Allah has prepared the land for them. Many Jews and Palestinians passionately regard the land and many of its sites as holy. Many Christians also regard much of the land as holy. Sadly, the whole Jewish-Christian-Muslim conflict over Palestine was contrived by the reptilian Anunnaki elite a long time ago as a diversion to keep people from suspecting where the real important sites are in the Middle East. The Garden of Eden is not an unfounded myth. It was created by the Anunnaki elite as a posh prison to house certain high-ranking Anunnaki prisoners. Being a high-security area, it was the perfect place to relocate the Atua. The location of the Atua is different from the location of the aperture, which is different from the energy source that I wrote about in Anunnaki and the Coming of the Sacred Cross. As the universe reaches the end of its life, things begin to go awry. Planets start to wobble, stars burn out, celestial bodies become less predictable in their movements, and other signs of deterioration become apparent. It is at that point that the universe needs a restart. Most of the Anunnaki remnants on Earth are awaiting the return of the Wahalu, whom they believe will be able to activate the Atua and restart time before the virtual reality breaks down completely. The Atua was relocated to Earth from the Anunnaki home planet of Nibiru for many reasons. The electromagnetic field created by Earth's hollow core, rotation, orbit, surrounding planets, sun, and other factors make the Earth a very effective dynamo for the operation of the Atua. At present, the magnetic field of the Earth is failing and falling below the ideal level for commencing the Atua. As the Earth's magnetic field weakens, it becomes far more difficult for the Atua to restart time. Time is running out for the Anunnaki plan. There is urgency about events now. People should prepare themselves for the unexpected. There are many on Earth who want the physical dimension to continue, even though they have now received enough information to realize that it is only a temporary existence. It is these people who are knowingly choosing evil for their temporary comforts. Others are being sucked into the charade, into thinking that the physical astral is all there is. The aliens will discard those who assist them soon enough. Of course, the aliens too will no longer exist after the Atua fails to operate. Electromechanical timers are used to start or stop a machine or other device at present or delayed intervals. A control system manages, commands, directs, or regulates the behavior of other devices or systems using control loops. It can range from a single home heating controller using a thermostat controlling a domestic boiler to large industrial control systems, which are used for controlling processes or machines. The control systems are designed via a control engineering process. This person's dress is brass fading to silver. That's done by a process called electroplating. Electroplating is the process of coating a metal with a different metal by the method of hydrolysis. In other words, electroplating is a method by which metal ions move via a chemical solution from a positive electrode to a negative electrode. What are the uses of electroplating? Used in jewelry, changing the texture of metal surfaces, facilitating conduction in circuit boards. Electroplating also helps to protect from radiation, abrasion, and many other natural phenomena just by imparting the desired characteristics to the surface of the metals which lacks those properties. On the opposite end, these two wore gold foil and silver foil. What are the different characteristics and properties of foil? Metals like copper and aluminium offer excellent electrical and thermal conductivity. Metal foils like aluminium, gold, and silver are highly reflective. Aluminium foil is the most well-known foil type due to its use in food packaging and cooking. Besides these uses, aluminium is also used for insulation, the manufacturing of capacitors, cable shielding and battery anodes, chemical processes and laboratory experiments. Gold foil offers excellent conductivity, resistance to corrosion, and effectiveness in shielding against radiation and electrical interference. 3 people at the gala dressed as clocks. His dress is covered in clocks. His represents the sands of time with the hourglass, and he's wearing sand. He looks like the white rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. The rabbit has pink eyes. He has pink glasses. Both have a waistcoat and a watch. The 3 Greek gods of time. The ancient Greek religion had at least 3 gods representing conceptions of time: Chronos, Ion, and Kairos. Chronos represented empirical time such as past, present, and future. In contrast to Chronos, Ion represented eternal time. He was closely associated with the afterlife as well as the cyclical nature of certain events, like the seasons. Kairos was considered the embodiment of opportunist time, specifically moments when action must be taken to achieve a task. A simple way to think of these gods is how they are represented in a given year. Chronos is the length of the year. Ion lives in the cycle of seasons, and Kairos represents the time when one should take advantage of the weather to plant or harvest. Interestingly, all 3 of these forms of time are still alive in religion today. For instance, all 3 of these gods and their representations are basic concepts in various Abrahamic religions. The Garden of Time by J.G. Ballard. Count Axel and his wife live and listen to Mozart in a magnificent villa surrounded by a garden of crystal flowers as an angry and unruly army advances upon them. To keep the approaching rabble at bay, Axel must turn back time by plucking the flowers one by one until they are all gone and there is no time left. Which brings us to M.C. Escher's drawing of reptiles in a time loop, walking off the paper, onto the books, and back into the paper. It's the Ouroboros time loop. And who do you think is behind that? 2 pictures of reptiles. Speaking of reptiles, he made yet another drawing of reptiles trapped in a geometric structure. May birthstone meaning. The significance of the emerald as the May birthstone not only symbolizes the renewal associated with spring, but also represents truth, wisdom, intuition, foresight, loyalty, abundance, success, and love. Throughout history, this birthstone has held cultural significance. For example, in the ancient cultures of Rome and Greece, emerald birthstones were often linked to the goddess Venus, who symbolized love and hope. Emeralds in watches. The world of horology has embraced emeralds for their precision, durability, and aesthetic appeal. High-end watchmakers often incorporate emeralds into the design of watch dials, crowns, and other components. The enduring allure of emeralds across time and industries. The allure of emeralds transcends the boundaries of time, geography, and industries. From their historical symbolism as tokens of power to the contemporary applications in technology and architecture, emeralds continue to captivate and inspire. Their metaphysical properties, healing associations, and cultural significance add layers to the gemstone's appeal, making emeralds a timeless and multifaceted treasure. Cardi B is clad in very expensive emeralds. That's raw emerald on the right. Cardi's nails are brown and green prisms. Of course, the emeralds reference The Wizard of Oz. Ariana is in the Broadway musical Wicked, the untold story of the Witches of Oz, with the emerald green. There's a scene where Dorothy threw water on the witch, and she melted into the floor. That's what Cardi B's dress reminded me of. Can't forget about the puppies making them sleep and Glenda sprinkling cocaine to wake them up. The witch has an hourglass. The person at the Met Gala brought an hourglass. The sand is red. The hourglass is supported by dragons. Cinnabar is a mercury sulfide. Its color is vermilion red. Cinnabar is sometimes known as dragon's blood, and it's also called red mercury, which I told you connects to portals. Then I recalled Dorothy picking apples, and Storm has an apple charm on his bag. After she took the apple, the tree scolded her for taking them without asking. She was talking to a dryad tree spirit. He was male, but it's still a dryad. Persephone and the pomegranate seed. Demeter and the mighty father of the god Zeus had a daughter Persephone, who was their greatest joy. A beautiful girl, she cherished the earth just like her mother. Persephone delighted in roaming the world, picking wildflowers in sunny meadows and appreciating the splendor and beauty all around her. One day, the goddess of love and beauty, Aphrodite, looked down from Mount Olympus. Out of the corner of her eye, she also noticed the ruler of the underworld, Hades, riding through the sky in his black chariot. A sudden idea came to Aphrodite. She smiled mischievously. None of the three goddesses nor Hades had ever been in love, but she could change all that. She quickly worked some magic, then sat back to watch the fun. Sure enough, it wasn't long before Hades marched into Zeus's throne room. Brother, the king of the underworld, announced, I'm in torment. I've fallen deeply in love with your daughter Persephone and cannot rest for longing. I've come to ask for her hand in marriage. Zeus was pleased. The mighty king of a vast kingdom, Hades was a wise and fair ruler. He owned all the wealth of the earth, including diamonds and emeralds. The Oz reference connects to a cereal called Tin Man.
Did you feel that?
Yeah.
They're testing a machine.
What sort of machine?
The complete destruction of the OZ.
Is that why she needs the emerald?
He said that she needs the emerald to make the machine work.
That's interesting. How?
Do you know anything about a machine that Escadelia is building?
Only rumors. Some mine in the Black Mountains.
Mauritanium. Big M, little t, number 216 in the Aussian periodic table.
Mauritanium. What's it for?
Besides its strength, Mauritanium is valued for its ability to conduct magical energy.
So if she gets a hold of the emerald, she can focus the power however she wants.
The emerald of the eclipse. History is about to be repeated.
She needs the emerald before the solar eclipse so she can keep the world in perpetual darkness. The rites were based on a seasonal death-rebirth theme common among agricultural cults such as the Eleusinian mysteries. The Osirian mysteries paralleled the Dionysian according to contemporary Greek and Egyptian observers. Kadi has his arms crossed. He's wearing a turban. That means he's channeling the Egyptian god Osiris. Kadi is in black. Osiris is god of the underworld. Kadi wears emeralds and green contacts, and Osiris has green skin. The solar eclipse last year and the one this year crossed paths over America. Osiris's arms are crossed. Do you understand? Osiris is the Egyptian god of the underworld and judge of the dead, brother husband to Isis and one of the most important gods of ancient Egypt. The occult meaning of the X symbol is simple. It is the sign of Osiris, the sun god. X equals Osiris risen, Egyptian god of the underworld. The Illuminati Masonic meaning of the X is simply this. It is the sign of Osiris, the great Egyptian sun god. However, in Hebrew, it's called Tau. It means mark, covenant, sign, or completion. Letter Tav or Tau, meaning cross. Astrology, Saturn. The cross is Saturn, the X or the X box. Tarot card, the universe, meaning everyone in this world. Alchemy, lead. Covenant, mark, sign. Leader, strength, ox, god. Aleph means ox or bull. Tav means a mark, sign, X, cross, seal, covenant. So the word Tau means seal. What is a seal? Anything that confirms, authenticates, or guarantees a pledge, an indication, sign, or token. To mark with a seal. Number 9, electricity. To bring a plug and jack into full interlocking contact. 10 Mormonism to make formal and binding, solemnize. Star of David in Hebrew, Magen David, literally Shield of David, a symbol of Judaism and now of the Republic of Israel, as a mystic symbol in the Middle Ages called Solomon's seal. It also said Tau is a covenant, a binding and solemn agreement made by two or more individuals, parties, etc., to do or keep from doing a specified thing, a compact. Geminalists appreciate emeralds for their unique qualities. They belong to the beryl family of minerals, and their green color is attributed to trace amounts of chromium and vanadium. Vanadium, the chameleon metal. One of the fascinating things is that in air, vanadium gets covered with a beautiful film of vanadium oxides, which gives the metal a very beautiful multicolored look. Vanadium 51, chameleon metal. That's interesting. Chameleon-like material could unleash more powerful computers. The existing paradigm of silicon-based computing has given us a range of amazing technologies, but engineers are starting to discover silicon's limits. As a result, for computer science to keep advancing, it is important to explore alternative materials that could enable different ways to do computation. Vanadium dioxide is one example. It is a very interesting chameleon-like material that can easily switch between two different phases, from being an insulator to being a conductor, as you heat and cool it or apply to a voltage. And if you think about these two phases as being analogous to a 0 and a 1, you can come up with some interesting new ways of information processing. Think of it as driving from point A to point B and back again. Going there, you can take a superhighway, but coming back, you're on back roads. Essentially, the addition of tungsten allows the vanadium oxide to switch quickly in one direction and much more slowly in the other, phenomena that can be exploited in future computers. It provides an additional knob to tune how you go back and forth between the two states. Health benefits of chromium. The chromium is a trace mineral which our bodies need in minimal amounts, but it is very important for the integral functions such as metabolism. The mineral can help the body to regulate blood sugar levels by transporting glucose to cells. The chromium deficiency can lead to an increase in the metabolic syndrome and diabetes. Also, with chromium deficiency, children and adults have increased chances of experiencing high levels of anxiety and fatigue. It's also interesting that emerald has a calming effect on the mind and alleviates stress. Emerald contains chromium and vanadium, and a deficiency of chromium leads to high levels of anxiety. What do they call an actor that can play different roles? They call them a chameleon. Dark blue and light blue is on the lizard. The black is also on its body. The texture of the crystals on his bodysuit mirrors the chameleon's skin. This is called a blue panther chameleon. Dionysus' symbol is the panther. How Alexandra Daddario transformed into a woodland nymph for the 2024 Met Gala. For tonight's Met Gala, my inspiration was a woodland nymph. She topped off the look with a thin crown formed by two undulating serpents encircling her head. When I saw the snake crown, I knew that I wanted to play up her eyes and embrace the theme Garden of Time. The central religious cult of Dionysus is known as the Bacchic or Dionysian mysteries. Some scholars have suggested that, additionally, there is no difference between the Dionysian mysteries and the mysteries of Persephone, but that these two were all facets of the same mystery religion, and that Dionysus and Persephone both had important roles in it. On the second day, a solemn ritual for Dionysus occurred along with drinking. People dressed up, sometimes as members of Dionysus's entourage, and visited others. The last day was dedicated to the dead. Offerings were also offered to Hermes due to his connection to the underworld. It was considered a day of merrymaking. In Rome, the most well-known festivals of Bacchus were the Bacchanalia, based on the earlier Greek Dionysia festivals. These Bacchic rituals were said to have included homophagic practices, such as pulling live animals apart and eating the whole of them raw. This practice not only served as a reenactment of the infant death and rebirth of Bacchus, but also as a means by which Bacchic practitioners produced enthusiasms, etymologically to let a god enter the practitioner's body, or to have her become one with Bacchus. The Bacchae is an ancient Greek tragedy written by the playwright Euripides. It won first prize in the City Dionysia Festival competition. The Bacchae is considered to be not only one of Euripides' greatest tragedies, but also one of the greatest ever written, modern or ancient. The Bacchant by Euripides. Before the palace of Pentheus at Thebes, enter Dionysus. For I will raise a hymn to Dionysus, who to his joy is initiated in heavenly mysteries and leads a holy life, joining heart and soul in Bacchic revelry upon the hills, purified from every sin, observing the rites of Sibyl, the mighty mother, and brandishing the thyrsus with ivy-wreathed head, he worships Dionysus. Go forth, you bacchanals, bring home the Bromian god Dionysus, child of a god, from the mountains of Phrygia to the spacious streets of Hellas. But forthwith Zeus, the son of Cronos, found for him another womb wherein to rest, for he hid him in his thigh and fastened it with golden pins to conceal him from Hera. And when the Fates had fully formed the horned god, he brought him forth and crowned him with a coronal of snakes, whence it is the thyrsus-bearing Maenads hunt the snake to twine about their hair. They purposefully placed him in front of the spiral. He is wearing a crown of snakes on his head. Hermes' symbol are two snakes coiled around a pole. Hermes, son of Zeus and May in Greek mythology, Olympian messenger of the god in commerce, protector of herdsmen, travelers, and rogues, god of secret dealings. He was identified by the Romans with Mercury. Hermes, messenger of the god, son of Zeus and May, magic wand, guides the dead to the underworld. God of commerce, thieves, and games, symbols include the caduceus, his staff, the purse or leather pouch, and the ram. Hermes, the parcel people. Those three blue lines are not a triangle. They're wings. Hermes can fly because he has winged sandals. When I saw this photo, I had to think of where I'd seen him. Victoria R. mirrored a video about this missing child. I think they are using filters on that. People were talking about her weird-looking eyes. Daddario's striking eyes were the focal point of the makeup look. That's a comparison. It's the same person. These actors are chameleons, so I'm not surprised he's hanging out with government people. I think this child is a boy. Those are large hands and wide wrists for a 3-year-old girl. This gold bra top and boy shorts. Maddie has dirty blonde hair. Alex has the same color, but they dye it black. The eye is green with a small brown spot on the iris. There's a small brown spot on the left leg. I haven't seen this film, but it's weird he has a plaster on his left leg. The pictures of what he's meant to look like is ridiculous because it looks nothing like him. They included sodomy bags under the eyes. If you take a picture of Alex, change the hair and make him younger, it's nearly the same. The side of the face and the chin is the same. They have edited Maddie's nose, but it's the same as Alex. And they have the same lip shape. Personally, I think the stripe on the eye is Photoshop because this person doesn't exist. It's a character in a ritual story that they created. This is Alex, and comparing both, that's him. On the left, they edit the bridge of the nose and the mouth. However, the right eyebrow shape is identical, and they have the same ears. His surname is allegedly Daddario, from the personal name Addario, a dialect variant of Dario. Dario, Spanish and Italian, from the personal name Dario, see Darius. Darius, which was born by various kings of ancient Persia, including Darius I. The Book of Ezra mentions another king named Darius, also known as Darius I or Darius the Great. Darius I is presented in Ezra as a good king who helped the Israelites in several ways. Prior to Darius's reign, the Jews who had returned from the Babylonian captivity had begun rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem. At that time, Israel's enemies did everything in their power to disrupt the construction. When Darius became king, construction of the temple resumed in the 2nd year of his reign. But the Jews' enemies again attempted to thwart their efforts. Tattenai, the Persian governor of Judea, wrote a letter to Darius in an effort to turn the king against the Israelites and stop the building of the temple. But Darius responded by commanding Tattenai and his companions to stay away from the site and let the Jewish elders continue with the rebuilding. Furthermore, the king decreed that the Jewish workers were to be paid from the royal treasury, that the builders would be given whatever was needed for the burnt offerings, and that anyone attempting to destroy the temple or disobey his decree would be impaled on a beam from his own house. Darius I showed himself to be a friend of Israel, and the Jews in Jerusalem prospered under his watch. The temple was completed in the 6th year of his reign. List of twin towns and sister cities in Israel. This is a list of places in Israel which have standing links in local communities and other countries, known as town twinning. The city of Hadera is matched up with Tamar, Portugal. Maddie disappeared in Lagos. How long does it take to get from Tamar to Lagos? 3 hours and 36 minutes. He was born in May and disappeared in May. That's unlikely. In northern Greece, May Day is associated with magic and spells. In Roman times, May was connected with death. The Vlachs believed that on the 1st of May, all magic spells come true. The only way to prevent being cursed by a spell is to carry the head of a viper, that's a snake. May is ruled by Taurus the bull. Moloch was a fire god. He was reinstated by the Judeans as one of a pantheon of Middle Eastern gods, most notably by Manasseh, one of the last kings of Judah. His worship involved the sacrifice of children. The Star of David, also called Solomon's seal. There was a brazen statue of Saturn with the hands extended, but so inclined towards the earth that the boy who was laid upon them to be sacrificed should slip off and so fall headlong into a deep fiery furnace. Taurus the bull is ruled by Venus, element earth. The root chakra is the Saturn chakra. It's always Saturn and Venus together. Venus is Asherah, the bull is Baal, and both accepted human sacrifice. An ode to Dionysus begins by addressing Dionysus as the god of many names. Omadios, flesh-eater. Eusebius writes that they did human sacrifice to Dionysus Omadios. Tauros, a bull, occurs as a surname of Dionysus. According to the Jewish Gezer calendar, May is the month of harvest. The Met Gala was in May, and that's about when Sivan is held. The Hebrew month of Sivan. Sivan is the 3rd month on the Jewish calendar. In the month of Sivan, we celebrate the holiday of Shavuot, when the Torah was given to God to the Jewish people on Mount Sinai more than 3,300 years ago. The word Shavuot means weeks. It marks the completion of the 7-week counting period between Passover and Shavuot. Shavuot also means oaths. What is an oath? A ritualistic declaration, typically based on an appeal to God or a god, or to some revered person or object, that one will speak the truth, keep a promise, remain faithful, etc., the ritual form used in making such a declaration. But it's also a swear word or a curse. Looking at Maddie's chart, he was born under the sign of Taurus. And it's interesting his Mercury was also in Taurus. Mercury, also known as Hermes, Alex is channeling the messenger god. Sagittarius is an archer, and if you're shooting something, then X marks the spot. Pluto changes signs every 12 to 20 years. That's accurate because as of today, Maddie has been missing for 17 years. Pluto, god of the underworld, is the ruler of Scorpio. In Greek mythology, the corresponding god was Hades. On the upside, Pluto is associated with renewal and rebirth. It represents endings and new beginnings, as well as spiritual growth and rebirth. Negative expression of Pluto is an obsessive desire for power and control and general destructiveness. Pluto keywords: transformation, power, fear and dread, death and rebirth, upheaval. What does Pluto signify in astrology? Like the phoenix rising from the ashes, he can show us how to transform that lead into gold. This will always involve a symbolic death. Don't forget we're dealing with the rule of Hades here. Something must be released in order for something new to be born. Pluto is outright possessive too. He kidnapped young Persephone from her mother Demeter, forcing her to live in the underworld. Domicile Scorpio. Detriment Taurus. Detriment is not good. What does Pluto govern? Power and power struggles, death and the afterlife, transformation, reinvention, regeneration. They show Taurus with the Magician card. Mercury or Hermes is the Magician as well. In 2024, Pluto will begin its retrograde cycle on May 2nd. The Met Gala was on the 6th of May. The planet of transformation, power, death, and rebirth will begin its retrograde cycle in Aquarius before backtracking into Capricorn. The themes usually present during Pluto retrograde, death, rebirth, and transformation, are especially profound this year since this retrograde will mark the final time that Pluto will touch Capricorn for a whopping 250 years. When Pluto goes retrograde, the planet appears to move backwards through the zodiac. From our point of view on Earth looking up toward the sky, Pluto will seemingly travel in the opposite direction. Pluto's backward movement in Capricorn, on the other hand, will prompt us to collectively examine the societal systems in place, healthcare, government, banking, and so on. This could result in major political shifts or societal revolutions in regards to these systems. And during the entirety of this retrograde phase, we'll find ourselves on the cusp of substantial change, forced to decide and let go of what no longer serves us. Pluto doesn't destroy for sport, it destroys to create. It's the planet of transformation and regeneration, which is the ultimate result of its death and rebirth process. In 2009, the McCanns released age-progressed images of how she may have looked at age 6 and at age 9. Yeah, that's rubbish. She disappeared at 3 years old. Then they released pictures at 6 and 9 years old, which is the 369 number code. I think the eye anomaly is fake. I looked up that condition and people call it coloboma. It looks as if the pupil is melting. Maddie's eyes are glowing, and that spot should be glowing as well, but it's not. You can barely see it, and I've noticed in different pictures that the stripe changes position. And in my opinion, it represents a dial. DIY star dial, how to tell time using the stars, compass, celestial equator, constellations. Apparently you line these up with Polaris and you can see the time by the stars. I don't have one of these, but I'm curious because if that stripe lines up with an astrological event, I wonder what message they were sending. The astrolabe looks like an iris with a stripe. A dial is also the face of a clock. On the Hebrew clock, that iris stripe would point to He. In post-biblical times, He came to stand for the numeral 5. There are competing theories as to the significance of the Paleo-Hebrew pictogram for the letter He. On the theory that it evolved from the Egyptian hieroglyphic symbol for hall, habitation, it would make sense that He would appear in words having to do with buildings like temple. The devil is a person with 2 heads standing on a reptile. 2 heads on one body. The snake has 2 heads, 1 body. Alex has 2 snakes on his head, again indicating he's really a boy. He was supposedly born in 1986. I don't believe that. They use AI editing and CGI, but I'm convinced that this is Madeline. Alex has a little bag. The Apkallu have a bag, and they are activating the Tree of Life. DNA is shown as a serpent. Hermes Caduceus is compared to DNA imagery. If you mix the letters D and A, you get D-A-N, Dan. Tribe of Dan symbol is the serpent. The Apkallu have a bucket and wear a dial on their wrist, and I think the child's eye looks like a dial. If they have this mark on the eye, what are they conveying? Demeter was abducted by Hades, Chloris was abducted by Zephyrus, Jupiter abducted Europa, Maddie was abducted in Portugal, Jenny Greenteeth abducts children. So if they're planning another high-profile abduction? They spent £10,000 on this? How many children go missing in the West? Why was this child special? I don't like to give a time of when these things happen because they can change their minds at any point. Taurus is easy to find. Its chief star, Aldebaran, is lined up with Orion's belt. The Crab Nebula is a fascinating object. It represents the wreck of a supernova or stellar explosion witnessed by Chinese observers in the year 1054. Crab Nebula, a crab-shaped nebula in the constellation Taurus, believed to be the remnant of a supernova. It is a very strong source of radio emission. The Hebrew month of Tammuz. 5 things befell our fathers on the 17th of Tammuz. The tables were broken, the daily whole offering ceased, the city was breached, the apostomus burnt the scrolls of the law, and an idol was set up in the sanctuary. Tammuz, the month of worship. Covenant alignment becomes very important this month. Constellation, Cancer the crab. And down there is the symbol for Het. Het means a door opening. Cancer symbol is the crab from about June 21st to July 21st. Osiris, god of life, death, and rebirth. Tammuz 17 and the 3 weeks of destruction and renewal. The Shiva Lingam represents creation and destruction. Do you see the red dot on Adwoa's lip? That's the Shiva Lingam. Adwoa is pregnant, that's creation. Cardi B is the god of the underworld, that's destruction. As the birthstone for May, the emerald, a symbol of rebirth, emerald, derived from the word smaragdus, means quite literally green in Greek. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, something must die in order for the new to be reborn. Since Pluto governs death and rebirth, its move into a new sign is often accompanied by a devastating or world-changing event that forces humanity to pivot and reinvent an area of life. The glyph of Cancer shows 2 symbols going in opposite directions. Back to the chameleons, 2 lizards facing opposite directions and floating in space. The lizard with his tongue out has a spiral on it. Chameleon is a small constellation in the deep southern sky. It's named after the chameleon, a kind of lizard. It was first defined in the 16th century. It was one of many constellations created by European explorers in the 15th and 16th centuries out of unfamiliar southern hemisphere stars. The constellation contains a number of molecular clouds, the chameleon dot clouds, that are forming low-mass T Tauri stars. T Tauri stars are a class of variable stars that are less than about 10 million years old. This class is named after the prototype T Tauri, a young star in the Taurus star-forming region. Chameleon is sometimes also called the frying pan in Australia. Octans contains the South Celestial Pole. The longer arm of the Southern Cross is a rough guide to the pole. One of Chameleon's stars is in the path of the Southern Cross. Star law of the constellations. Crux, the Southern Cross. The constellation Crux, the cross, usually referred to as the Southern Cross, is the smallest constellation in the sky, but it has held an important place in the history of the Southern Hemisphere. Ptolemy recognized the stars as part of the constellation Centaurus, where they marked the bottom of the hind legs and were thus, as were all the stars of the equine part, denoted as akin to Venus and Jupiter in influence. In ancient times, and around the districts of Egypt and Babylonia, the stars were visible low on the horizon, but the effect of precession has lowered them further to the south, so that over time they become invisible to Northern Hemisphere astrologers. Currently, they are no longer visible in latitudes higher than the Tropic of Cancer. The impressive sight of the Holy Cross was more than a morale boost to the efforts, since studying the constellations' inclinations from the perpendicular allowed navigators to calculate time and location. Ancient identification with the bestial part of Centaurus gives the bright stars of Crux similar associations to those of Bungula on the hoof of the centaur's right foreleg. Linked to the mythological figure of Chiron by Eratosthenes as early as the 2nd century, Bungula has been used to signify sacrifice, healing and the need to be healed, and the quest to override base instincts for the sake of the collective benefit. In the new identification of the cross, the theme of sacrifice and stoic resilience has been further emphasized with heightened ecclesiastical connections. Robson claims that it gives religious beneficence, ceremonial justice, magic, and mystery, and that it is frequently prominent in the horoscopes of astrologers and occultists. No doubt the European explorers saw the sign of the cross in the sky as a potent symbol of blessing for the endeavors to bring Christianity to new lands. But their exploits were never easy, and others have pointed to the constellation as expressing a danger of wounds or accidents, or of the cross being symbolic of heavy responsibilities and suffering. J. E. Surlott, in his Dictionary of Symbols, explores the cross as an ancient symbol of opposing forces that cut across each other, so that it is often used to signify agony, struggle, and martyrdom, but also conflict, of possibilities and impossibilities, of construction and destruction. Australia calls it the Southern Cross, but the Hebrews call it Tau, meaning a sign or covenant. I think it's interesting how it said the Southern Cross is a symbol of sacrifice, death, or disaster, so when you see the sign, you know what it means. Crucius is in the sky, and it reminds me of the Rosicrucian cross. Erykah Badu wore a black turban. Willow Smith has a similar headpiece. The black tape on Erykah's fingers is like the Jewish tefillin. Willow's headgear connects to African royalty of Congo. Willow 23 wore a boxy blazer as a mini dress, sheer tights and stilettos. She wore her hair in a towering cylindrical braided hairstyle done by the hairstylist Vernon Francois. On Instagram, Francois explained that he drew inspiration from the intricate beauty of Mangbetu tribe hairstyles. Mangbetu, peoples of Central Africa living to the south of the Zande in northeastern Congo. The name Mangbetu refers strictly speaking only to the aristocracy which in the 19th century established a number of powerful kingdoms. The Mangbetu impressed early travelers with their political institutions and their arts, especially their remarkable skill as builders. Okay, so if I go to Israel right now, will I see them there building the temple? They became renowned also for their supposed cannibalism and for the practice of deforming the heads of babies by binding them tightly so that they retained through life a curiously elongated form. Signs of Revelation, the Beast, the Temple, and Israel. The book of Revelation tells us much about what will happen during the time period prior to the return of Christ. We are told that in the latter stages of the end of days, the Antichrist will rise to power. The passage of Scripture tells us that the man of sin, i.e. the Antichrist, will claim the Jewish temple for his own and proclaim to the world that he is God. The four holy cities of Judaism are the cities of Jerusalem, Hebron, Safed, and Tiberias. Jerusalem has been the holiest city in Judaism and the spiritual center of the Jewish people since the 10th century BC, when the site was chosen during the lifetime of King David to be the location of the Holy Temple. The Cave of the Patriarchs in Hebron is the burial place of the Jewish patriarchs Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah. As such, Hebron is the second holiest city to Jews. Safed came to be regarded as a holy city after the influx of Jews following the expulsion of Jews from Spain in 1492 and became known as a center of Kabbalistic scholarship. Tiberias is significant in Jewish history for several reasons. It was the place where the Jerusalem Talmud was composed and served as the final meeting place of the Sanhedrin before its disbanding in 425 CE. In Jewish belief, the Messiah will arise from the lake of Tiberias, enter the city, and be enthroned at Safed, on the summit of a lofty hill. The birthstone for May is emerald. The second row shall be emerald. That's the tribe of Judah's stone. The tribe of Judah is one of the Hebrew tribes founded by Judah, son of Jacob. The tribe was allotted the southernmost area of Canaan after the territory's conquest by the Israelites under Joshua. The religion centered on the Jewish god Yahweh first took roots among the people of Judah. From this tribe came the great kings David and Solomon. The Messiah, as the lineal descendant of David, also comes from the tribe of Judah. Together with the tribe of Benjamin and elements of the tribe of Levi, the descendants of Judah eventually formed the southern kingdom of Judah in the ancient land of Israel. In time, the tribe of Judah became identified with the entire Hebrew nation and gave its name to the people known today as the Jews. In the accounts of the kingdom of Saul, Judah is given distinct identity from the other tribes. Although several rebellions arose, this union continued for 80 years through the reign of King Solomon. It is especially noteworthy that the prophetic movement of Yahwism took root in the territory of Judah. It became at times the state religion of that kingdom and formed the basis of the religion later known as Judaism. The tribes of Israel were constituted when Judah blessed each of his sons except Joseph at the end of his life. The man Judah, for whom the tribe was named, lived a complicated life, one that shows both the depravity of the human heart as well as God's capacity to redeem anyone. He joined his brothers in assaulting one of his younger brothers, Joseph, out of jealousy. He grew up after this moment and had 3 sons with a Canaanite woman. He married a woman named Tamar to his oldest son, who died, and then to a second son, who also died. He promised Tamar his youngest son, but failed to do so. When his Canaanite wife died, he was in the same area as Tamar, who he sent away to live with her father, a shameful thing for him to do. Having been promised a child from Judah's line, Tamar disguised herself and conceived twins with Judah himself. But they're not telling you about a very important fact. I did a video about this briefly and I'll add the clip here. You will notice that Herodotus uses two distinct names for the goddess that the prostitute priestesses worship. The first is Aphrodite, called Venus in Rome, who was worshipped in Greece as the goddess of love and beauty. The Greek Aphrodite was not worshipped by the Babylonians specifically, but rather Herodotus sees the goddess that the Babylonians are worshipping as another face or identity of the goddess he's most familiar with. The second name is Mylitta, whom Herodotus sees as the Assyrian version of Aphrodite. Mylitta is most likely the Hellenized name of the Assyrian goddess Mulissu, whom in the Neo-Assyrian Empire was seen as the goddess Ishtar, also called Inanna. The first two are in Genesis. The entirety of Genesis 38 is the story of Judah, one of the founders of the 12 tribes, having children with his daughter-in-law Tamar. Tamar originally married the two elder sons of Judah named and Onan, but God killed them due to their wickedness and the desire not to impregnate Tamar respectively. As a result, Judah's youngest son Shelah was supposed to marry Tamar through a practice called levirate marriage, but Shelah was too young to marry, so Tamar had to wait till he grew up. After Shelah grew up, Tamar heard that Judah was going to share his sheep, so she veiled herself and waited alongside the road for him. Judah didn't recognize Tamar when he met her alongside the road due to her veil. He believes her to be a prostitute, and after making some payment arrangements, has sex and impregnates her. When he comes to deliver his payment to her, he cannot find her. He asks others about her and specifically calls her a Kadesha. Kadesha, definition, a male prostitute, cult prostitute, temple prostitute, sodomite. If he's such a holy man of God, why is he sleeping with a sacred prostitute? They were in the service of Inanna Ishtar, and that was known to him because he called her a Kadesha. Yes, Tamar disguised herself, but he slept with her anyway. Didn't God say not to worship Asherah and Baal? But they tell you the Hebrews married pagan women as well. It's not adding up. God often called Judah into battle first. David was from the tribe of Judah. After David and Solomon's deaths, Judah was the only tribe that remained loyal to the memory and the ways of David. The ways of David? The Star of David? Nowhere in the Bible or the Talmud is it referenced as the Star of David. However, the Bible does reference this to be the Star of Remphan belonging to Moloch. If May is the bull and Judah's emblem is the lion, how does that fit in? Lamassu represent the zodiac's parent stars or constellations. They're depicted as protective deities because they encompass all life within them. In the Sumerian Epic of Gilgamesh, they're depicted as physical deities as well, which is where the Lamassu iconography originates. Physical representations or embodiments of divine higher principles associated with celestial origins. The Lamassu is a celestial being from ancient Mesopotamian religion, bearing a human head, a bull's body, and wings. Sometimes it had the horns and ears of a bull. From Assyrian times, Lamassu were depicted as hybrids with bodies of either winged bulls or lions and the heads of human males. Assyrian sculpture typically placed prominent pairs of Lamassu at entrances and palaces facing the street and also internal courtyards. From ancient Near East to Dungeons and Dragons, Lamassu, the Mesopotamian gatekeeper. Lamassu played a significant role in the religions of Mesopotamia and were common in households from the Sumerian to the Babylonian era. Lamassu were placed as sentinels at prominent locations in ancient Mesopotamia. They were sculpted in colossal sizes and placed in prominent pairs at the entrances of cities, palaces, throne rooms, templates, courtyards, or other structures of significance. The Hittites practiced sacred prostitution as part of a cult of deities, including the worship of a mated pair of deities, a bull god and a lion goddess. And we know that Tamar pretended to be a sacred prostitute and Judah slept with her, meaning he knew about the practice and didn't care. We have a bull on the left and a lion on the right. They are sentinels at the Tree of Life Stargate portal. There's El Fanning doing the devil horns. Or is it the bull horns? The bull signifying the covenant that they are under. Tav, the final letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The picture behind Tav is the sign or seal of a covenant. It was often used as a mark in the same sense as our signature is today, especially of those who could not read or write, similar to the practice of signing an X on a contract. Conceptually, Tav is a wounding, as the sealing of a covenant required the wounding of the sacrifice whose blood sealed the covenant. In the ancient language, the generic word for God was Al, could also be pronounced as El. The A represents Aleph, which is a symbol of an ox's head. This is the symbol of power, and it is also the number 1. Baal means father of God and was a bull god who had a son, Yahweh, the Canaanite bull god of war. Many people believe that 1 is the number of God, but it is rooted from the symbol of Aleph, the ox head of power. Yahweh hated his father Baal, and this is why he did not want people to worship the golden bull, which was a symbol of him. Yahweh also told people to see Saturn's day as the holy day. On the planet Saturn, there seems to be a vortex of the hexagram and the eye. Another symbol of Saturn is a cross-like symbol. The so-called devil sign with the horns is actually the symbol of the bull's horns. They've reset time for centuries now, but this time I don't see it working. I've had visions where the codes in the machine are inoperable, so here's to your failed attempt at keeping people imprisoned for another eon.